here we go. So today I wanted to talk about the books that have had the biggest impact on me over the course of my personal development life, if you want to call it that. So yeah, I won't go into too much into this backstory because it's probably something that I want to save for another video, and something I want to be put more thought into sharing and telling the story. But when I was experiencing my second episode of pretty deep depression, that's when I kind of found personal development. It kind of started with mindfulness and then progressed to being other books. So the first book that I'm going to talk about is The Celestine Prophecy. So I don't actually have the original copy because I've given it to my dad to read. It's a book that's been passed around our family through my cousins that's in New Zealand, my uncle that's in Australia, or was in Australia at the time. My dad's read it, my sister's read it. Pretty much all of us have read it. I've had it for the longest time, and it was time for it to move on. But yeah, it's a book that's like incredibly well thumbed. So I wish I had the copy to show you, and maybe I'll try and include a picture in the video, and I can just superimpose it in. But yeah, there's nothing like a well thumbed book. But this book is a parable that was written by James Redfield. So essentially, I don't want to compare it to the Bible because it's probably not doing the Bible justice or even doing the Celestine Prophecy justice, but by a parable I mean that it's a kind of a story that has messages and insights throughout it. So the Celestine Prophecies told us 10 insights that you gain slowly over time, which is kind of, you know, comparable to anybody's personal development journey. It will start off with one thing, whether it's like, you know, Mark Manson's books, Everything's Fucked, or the other books that he's got. That might be somebody's first journey, and that might help them to either start exploring boundaries, start exploring, you know, anxiety and depression if that's something that they've dealt with. It might help them explore meditation and all these different tools that can help them kind of start on their journey. And so that's kind of what Celestine Prophecy did for me. I think spirituality, I'm reluctant to call it religion because for me that's not kind of the way that I identify it, but yeah, just spirituality, giving yourself up to a higher power was the biggest kind of thing that I taught through or was taught through the lessons in the book. So yeah, it's kind of a meld between personal development and kind of like a fiction book. So it's a story of an unnamed character who starts to experience his coincidences, which is the first insight, that there are coincidences that happen in your life and these aren't for no reason. There is a meaning to them. Obviously you can make the argument that meaning is just whatever you ascribe to it. So I think there's an element of that we do have under our control. But he starts to experience these coincidences. He ends up in Peru and on an incredible journey where he learns these insights and is able to implement them straight away. So it's definitely a book that I would recommend reading, and like I said, it was kind of the catalyst for me launching into other books. I'd since read, I think James Redfield has about 4 or 5 books. So it was The Celestine Prophecy, the 11th Insight, and then there was the 12th Insight, which I think is Secrets to Shambhala. So yeah, the later books explore, you know, concepts like angels and prayer energy and different things like that, which are kind of more deep. But the first book, The Celestine Prophecy, is a great place to start. Even if you're just interested in fiction, I think it's a great book, just based on the ideas that it explores. So yeah, that's the one. This book that I had here, this is the experimental guide. So basically it just takes, as the book is a parable, it takes kind of the concepts from it and makes it into kind of a more like typical personal development book that's like, hey, here's the like 7 steps you need to do to implement insight number 1. Here's the, you know, 5 steps you need to do to implement insight number 2. So yeah, I think this is an incredibly good book, but definitely pick up the original copy that is the parable version before you get the experimental guide. So yeah, that's that one again. Like I feel like I'm underplaying how much of an influence it's had on my life, but that is an incredible book, and one that I continue to go back to. I think I've read it kind of 3 or 4 times, and every time I go through it, I kind of experience different things through it, just because of the lens of my life and what I'm experiencing. The insights that it's given me are incredible. So yeah, next book is Power versus Force, which is another book that was recommended to me at a very, very pivotal time, and probably at a time that I felt that I was forcing things. So the title definitely spoke to me. I love black and white aesthetic, as you can tell probably by the shirt that I wear and what you'll see in other videos. And so, yeah, this book really spoke to me. It was recommended by a coach that I was working with at the time, Nikki V and Tony V, who are incredible people and incredible coaches to me. And yeah, super, super good book. So it's written by David Hawkins, and the concept of this book, to break it down, it starts off as explaining that there is, and that there is factual evidence of this, that there is like a muscle testing procedure or technique that they can do where they'll hold your arm up. Obviously you need to be practiced, and there's practitioners of it, and if something's true, your arm will stay strong. If it's not, it will go weak and go down. So through this process, to skip ahead a few steps, what David Hawkins has actually presented, which may be something that you've seen before if it's something that you're into as far as personal development, is the consciousness scale. So everything from the very bad feelings that we have at the bottom, which is like pain, despair, hopelessness, all of those things, those are obviously the bad energies at the bottom. So they have a low score. It's from 0 to 1,000, I believe. I may be getting that wrong. And then obviously the feelings that are at the top of that are faith, happiness, joy, empathy, compassion. All of these positive feelings are on the top of the consciousness scale. So he goes through and explains in that book kind of how that applies to the world. And one of the biggest things that I thought was quite funny that I've written down in my book journal. So I have a little journal that I keep track of all the different books that I've read, and score them on a little scale based on the quality of writing, pace, plot development, characters, enjoyability, insightfulness, and all those things, and then just write some notes too. And the quote that I'd written down, or the part that I thought was funny, was that I credited this book with transitioning from listening to rap music to country music. So he, as part of the book, puts different kinds of music on a scale, on the consciousness scale, and country music was one of the ones that was at the top. So I love music. I listen to it every day. If you know me, you know I have these headphones on 24/7, which is probably not good with the EMF radiation, but I have these on 24/7, and I'm normally listening to music or listening to a podcast. And so I found, as somebody that's kind of like sensitive and kind of like picks up on energies, that the music that I listen to has a profound effect on my mental state. So I love grime music. I kind of loved drill music for a while, but it's not something that I can listen to on a consistent basis because it does negatively affect my mental health. So it's something I moved away from, and I definitely try to listen to better music and more quality music, and country music is part of that. So yeah, one quote that I'll share from the book, which I love, which is the only way to enhance one's power in the world is by increasing one's integrity, understanding, and capacity for compassion. So as he explains in the book, basically moving towards the emotions, feelings, and good stuff on the top of the scale is basically how you increase your consciousness and increase kind of your enjoyment of life. So yeah, this is definitely a book that ramps up, kind of in the same way that the Celestine Prophecy does, in that the insights at the beginning are kind of basic. When he talks through the muscle testing process, that's something that's easy to understand. Maybe you don't agree with it, but it's easy to understand and digest. But as he transitions through the book and starts going into kind of quantum physics and all the explanations for the insights that he's put forward from a scientific point of view, as well as kind of a spirituality point of view, because there are often two worlds that don't meet very often, it can get pretty heavy. So this is a book that I've written a couple of times. I wouldn't really recommend it for beginners. If you've read some other personal development books and this is something that speaks to you, I'd definitely get involved and give it a go. But it's probably something that you'll want to come back to a few times as you kind of gain knowledge, gain understanding, and gain insight, and then you can start to apply more and more, because I think, especially with these personal development books, it's better to read less books more times. In my experience, if you find a really, really good book, a really good quality book, that's something that is valuable to keep going back to and keep referencing. So which brings us on to my next book, which is a book that I've had to buy myself for probably 3 or 4 times, because every time that I give it away, I find myself wanting to read it again. So yeah, this is The Way of the Superior Man. The title is a bit misleading. So there's an extensive preface in this, which I'll kind of iterate here in the best way that I can. This book isn't just for men. the concepts that he brings up are about masculine and feminine energy, which is something that I'm super passionate about. And when people hear masculine and feminine, they immediately apply it to biological males and biological females. That isn't the case here. It's masculine and feminine energy. You'll see the same dynamics play out in same-sex relationships, where someone will naturally go towards more masculine energy and someone will naturally go towards more feminine energy, and it's that polarity that creates the attraction in the relationship and creates kind of the dynamic of two people being attracted to each other. If somebody's more balanced, there's less polarity, those relationships can still work. But yeah, there's just a different dynamic to them. Again, I'm not the best at explaining this, and in the past I've actually been mistaken for being someone that's sexist by trying to explain it, which is absolutely not the case at all, and I found really helpful. But again, it's just a journey that I'm on to understanding these things, and not just understanding them, but being able to present them in a way that other people understand, because it makes sense in my head, but maybe doesn't make sense in their head. So basically, as the blurb says in this book, it's a spiritual guide to mastered in the challenges of women, work, and sexual desire. And so I feel like this book was something that I wish I'd had when I was 18 and becoming a man. There's not many positive male role models in the world. My dad is obviously an incredible male role model, and somebody that takes care of her family and is a huge inspiration to me, and one of the kindest, most patient people that I've ever met. And so I don't mean this as a slight on him, but there are some things that he didn't teach me, and so this book kind of fills the gap and helps me understand the role that work plays in my life, and how being productive is part of fulfilling my purpose on this planet, and what's going to make me happy. It helped me understand women, it helped me understand myself in a profound way. So there's lots of different parts of this book, and I would recommend this both for men and women, because I think this book has such great insight on understanding the ways that men work and the way that women work, and so by understanding the weaknesses of men, the strengths of women, and the inverse, we're able to just work together better and kind of understand each other. Because I think the adage that men are from Mars and women are from Venus is totally true. It can feel like we're from a different planet sometimes. And so yeah, this book I think is amazing in that it does bring that understanding together and help you understand how women work, because they don't work like men, or in the same way people who are in masculine energy. So it's probably the better way to explain it and the better verbiage to use. People that are in masculine energy don't operate the same way that people in feminine energy do. So this book, I can't recommend it enough for both men and women. I think the title is perhaps a little bit deceiving, and yeah, the book isn't about striving to be the best man that you can possibly be, if that's what you're looking to get out of this book. But even if you're a woman trying to understand men better, if you're in a same-sex relationship and you're trying to understand your partner better, I think this book is an incredible way to do that, and I think it will super pay off. So that's a great book. Again, I'm still understanding and working through how to express the ideas in this book in a correct way, because obviously there's people in the industry like Andrew Tate who don't put across the message in the best way, and say some things that are just straight out incorrect. So I think there's a discourse that's needed there, and once I learn and I'm able to articulate it better, maybe that'll be a video in the future. But when we get there, I will make that video. The Way of the Superman, super good. Again, a book that I've bought and given away plenty of times, so it's one that I will want to have on my bookcase probably for the rest of my life and continue to reference back. Cool, so that's all of my favourite books. Now we're going to go back to, as you will have seen in the title, the worst book I've ever read, and I don't mean this to be an attack on the gentleman that made this book, but one thing that's really important when you start to understand how to read better book and the art of finding better books, to the point that I mentioned before, reading less books but reading better books is the ideal scenario, really. And so it's important to identify when you're looking at books what the author's goal was when writing it. If their goal was to have this be marketing, have it bring awareness to their business, have it produce sales for them, then the book you're going to get isn't going to be high quality, and it isn't going to be purely to deliver insight. It's going to be to hook you in and basically have it act as a part of their funnel, and then then market to you further and upsell you to other things. So those books where it's marketing fluff, you definitely want to stay away from them. And in the case of this book, which is The Setup by Dan Bilzerian, again, the only reason I still have this book is because there hasn't been anybody that I felt that I wanted to give this away to or that would get any value from it. So yeah, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it. Maybe I'll burn it. We'll see. But yeah, this book was written not necessarily to give insight, which I thought was the case. So the premise of the book is it's called The Setup. If people don't know who Dan Bilzerian is, he's somebody that's been an Instagram influencer for a long time. He was in the Navy SEALs and passed BUD/S training twice, I believe. Or no, he was rolled back twice, which meant he had to begin from the beginning of it and go through Hell Week, which is an incredible experience and something that's very, very difficult. They have to do drown proofing, which is when they basically have to sink to the bottom of a swimming pool and jump up with their hands tied behind their back, take one breath and then go back down again. And it's designed to simulate drowning. So again, the experiences that he's been through in his life have been incredible. He got super rich with poker. Then he became super famous because he was posting these exploits with women, cars and vacations on Instagram. And so the premise of this book, like I mentioned, is called The Setup. So it was all about setting up your life in a way that attracts the things that you want, whether it's business opportunities, whether it's women, whether it's happiness, friends, networking, whatever it is that you want, you should set up your life in a way to attract it. So I thought that the book was going to be about that. And I think that's something that is true. I think you need to set up your life in a way that creates community. You need to set up your life in a way that brings in the things that you value, whether that's time with your family and being a better dad, whether that's achieving more material success or business success. You need to set up your life up in a way where you're talking to people that are doing business and learning and doing that thing. So again, I thought that's what the book was going to be about. Turned out to just be basically a biography of his exploits, which wasn't super valuable at all. And so, yeah, I just found myself getting really just down on it. Like, I'm not super driven by money. Obviously, comparison is a huge part of all of our lives, because it's kind of an innate primal instinct that we've got to compare ourselves to our tribe, and even in ape populations, you see this hierarchy emerge just naturally. It's not something that's forced or just a symptom of the modern world. And so, yeah, the very hedonistic nature of this book was the thing that put me off. And so, yeah, I try to read books that challenge me. Again, I'm somebody that does believe in spirituality and does believe in those ideas, and so I do try and read books that are atheist too. So, Mark Manson's book, Everything is Fucked, was something that did challenge me recently, because there was some sort of nihilistic thoughts that he had, and that's something that kind of transitions or kind of conflicts with me and creates this cognitive dissonance. But that's something that I always try and lean into whenever I'm reading a book and I do get that cognitive dissonance and go, oh, I don't really agree with this guy, rather than write it off and kind of submit to the confirmation bias and only wanting to read things that I agree with. I try and lean in and go, okay, what if this guy's right? Let me entertain this idea. Let me kind of be on a level with the author and have it kind of be a conversation between us, like I would have if I disagreed with a friend. I'd go, hey, here's what I think, here's what you think, let's see how those two ideas kind of look against each other. So yeah, without wanting this to be a big attack on Dan Bilzerian, unless you're super interested in kind of him filling in the details of his life, and that's the part that you found really interesting, is like his exploits, the women he slept with, and the kind of situations and experiences that he's been through in his life. If that's what you're into, then definitely read this book. That will fulfill that for you. But if you're looking at it from a personal development point of view, if you're a guy that's looking to achieve more business success or more success in general, whether it's with women, whether it's financially, etc., I don't think this book will offer you any insight whatsoever, and will probably be a negative experience. So yeah, that's everything. I would love to hear your favourite books in the comments, if you've got them. Yeah, that would be awesome. I'm always looking for new books to read, and especially in the personal development world. There's so many good books out there that I've not heard of and could probably add a huge amount of value to my life. So yeah, definitely let me know. Hope this video has been valuable to you. If it has, just drop me a like or drop me a comment, and yeah, hopefully I'll speak to you soon.